Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Joining me today are my fellow members of my church. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
I am personally doing good.
I mean, surviving but not thriving, but
I'm doing fine.
So, to get us started, give us your names, what instruments you play, and how long you have been playing for.
Hello, my name is Axel. I play the clarinet, the saxophone, and the piano. I've been playing the clarinet since I was in sixth grade, which would have been like about 9 years ago from today. Saxophone since I was like in eighth, so I'll say about 7 years ago from today. And the piano since I was in 10th grade, which was about 5 years ago today.
Hi, my name is Daniela. I play the flute and the guitar. My main instrument is the flute. I've been playing it since seventh grade, so I believe that's about 8 or 9 years. And the guitar, I think I learned back in 2016, so that's like 6 years.
My name is Darling, and I've been playing the trumpet for about 6 or 7 years.
All right, great. Before we begin with the actual questions, let's just talk a bit about our upbringing and how we know each other. Maybe a funny memory you have about us.
Me, Alex, and Axel are all related. Me and Alex are siblings, and Axel's our cousins. And we used to live in the same house, actually, so we grew up very close. A funny memory I have, there's just too many. Yeah, I don't think I'd put one specifically down. I think this whole podcast is a funny memory I'll think about for years.
So, Daniela and Alex are my cousins. I've grown up really close to them for basically my entire life. We used to live in the same house. Darling, I met her in the church. Something I remember with these people is that we went to Six Flags once, and me and Darling were like the only cool ones who were actually excited to be there. And then my two cousins, Alex and Daniela, they were afraid of going on like all the big rides. So yeah, me and Darling were just there all excited, and these two freaking out when the thing was moving like at 2 miles per hour.
Okay, so I met Alex and Daniela. They're siblings. I met them together at the same time when I was around 12, and I think we didn't all get close together, including Axel, their cousin, until I was around 15. And ever since then, we've been kind of close, and but we didn't get too close until about 2 years ago. A funny memory I have with Alex and Daniela is when Daniela is about 11 years old, and they both walk into church, and Daniela is crying and extremely mad because she's wearing a wrong colored shirt, and she thinks she looks like a mustard bottle. And Alex just starts going off and is like, this one is all sad and mad because she's wearing the wrong color. And that'll forever stick in my mind. I think that's the first time I actually met them.
Okay, so anyways, circling back to the actual questions, how did you start playing the instrument that you play right now? And when did you realize being on the worship team was something you wanted to be a part of?
So I started playing the sax around 8th grade, and the reason why is because I always wanted to play the sax. As a child, it was one of my favorite instruments, so I made it a goal to learn about it. I actually started on the clarinet for a while first, and from there I transitioned to the sax. And then I started with the piano because I wasn't really interested in it at first, but my mom, she was curious about it, and she's like, why don't you learn it? And, she gave me that little kickstart into wanting to learn the piano. And then being on the worship team, for me, I was always a church boy growing up, really. So, and then since I was playing a couple instruments already, it just seemed like something that would interest me, that would be a good fit for me. So that's why I started on that, and it's been a good match ever since, and I really enjoy being on the worship team.
I guess I joined the worship team when I saw most of my cousins and my siblings playing, because my sister was the first one out of all of us to join. And after that, the whole family started going in little by little. And some of my friends, so I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll join. I was also very hesitant about that because I was very nervous and shy. But once I joined, I stayed a part of it for 7 years, even though I'm taking a break right now. It's still something I miss from time to time. And I'll probably be circling back to it once again later in the future. So
The moment I realized I wanted to play the trumpet, I was in the 6th grade. It was the summer right after 6th grade, which I think was like 2016 or 2015, something around there. And I heard Alex and Daniela's sister. She was playing this one song on the worship team, and I just went bonkers. I was obsessed with it, with the way she played it, and I told my mom, I was like, can I play this instrument? But at that moment, I was playing another instrument, and she was like, no, you can only pick one. So I decided to pick the trumpet, which I'm very grateful for because I've been playing on the worship team ever since I learned. And I guess that was the moment as well that I realized that I wanted to be on the worship team, when I heard how much I loved it. And ever since then.
All right, guys, my next question for you is, are there any moments that you experienced that either solidified your decision to stay playing in the group or made you ever want to quit?
There have been a lot of moments where I've wanted to quit. I think most of the problems I've had have been time management, because I guess I don't have enough time, but I do. I just don't know how to manage it. And that's the biggest reason that I wanted to quit. Like, it becomes a real stress, almost a burden to play sometimes. But after all, I realized how much more I benefit from being on the worship team than being off of it. And I think it's only been good for me to be up there.
There were many times where I did want to quit because, there was always personal reasons, and like also the people in that team, sometimes they just make you want to leave so badly. But then, as right now I'm taking a break, I've decided to take a 3-month break from the group. And I think in this time I've really reflected, and I really miss playing. And it's really just giving me like a little boost to keep going once the break is over, to rejoin the group and get back with everything and more.
There was nothing ever really that made me want to quit. Now, have there been tough times? Yeah, I would say for sure. But in those tough times when I've been busy with things, or, maybe something happened between someone, or, just some unfortunate situation, it's never made me want to quit now. But with those tough times, yeah, things get difficult and you might want to give up. But during those times, I feel like I've been able to grow spiritually, and that's something, that benefited me in the future. Each situation makes me a little bit stronger for the next situation, and that I feel like has solidified more of my experience of wanting to be in the worship team and sticking in there, because I know eventually things will all turn out all right, and I can keep doing the thing I love.
I know all of us have been playing since middle school, so how would you describe your experience balancing school and church? And now that we're older, do you think it gave you a sense of responsibility?
So yeah, I've definitely grown a sense of responsibility since then. And now starting off, I started off when I was in middle school, but really the biggest part of my time in there was when I was in high school, actually, because all 4 years of high school, I was in the worship team. And it was difficult because I would have to balance schoolwork, I would have to balance going to church every single day, and I also did after school activities like cross country and track. So I've always felt like I was tough on time, because then I also had to practice afterwards as well. I had to practice playing my instrument, not just in the church, but at home, to make sure I knew what I was doing when I got to church. So it was definitely tough. And that carries on, even after high school, because then you have to start working, and then college comes along, and it's not easy. But with all that, it definitely does grow a person. It does make you more responsible, and it shows that if you really dedicate your time well, that you can grow no matter the situation. And that, and I feel like it's beneficial, because without those hard times, I don't think I would have half the responsibility I do now.
I definitely think it gave me a sense of responsibility, because we don't have to be there once a week. It's we're playing twice, and we practice once. And then if you're doing other things, you play on Friday as well. So that's just about 4 days a week that you have to be responsible and on time. to these practices or to playing. So that's definitely an extra responsibility on top of school and life and work. And now that I'm older and I work, sometimes it does become hard and it almost seems like an option, but I try not to look at being on the worship team like that. I try to see it just like I see school, like it's gonna benefit me in the long run, just like school and work will.
I think playing since middle school, I can until now that we're in college and we work, and church when we play, it's about 4 nights out of the week, or you have Sunday service, Monday practice, Wednesday service, and Friday service, and sometimes if we have events, there'll be Saturdays or whole weekend long events. And it's definitely something that keeps you, you have to stay on top of your stuff. You have to stay on top of your studies because you don't want to fall behind. And, work, you can't really miss that much work. So you definitely have to balance everything out. And it does give you a sense of responsibility and like how to manage your time correctly.
Have you ever felt as though being on the worship team ever strained your relationship with God in a way? Did you have times where you kind of felt obligated to play instead of playing out of love?
So I have had many moments where I felt like, oh, like I was obligated to play. And if I don't play, then it's going to be seen as a bad thing. Because a lot of times in our church, if people don't see you play for like 2 services, they'll be like, did you quit? And they're like, they would ask questions. And I'm like, oh, just to keep them, keep people from talking and keep people from doing this and that, I would play. And my parents would be like, you're not allowed to quit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got to play. Like, it became an obligation. Like it was like doing a job rather than doing it out of heart. And it, I don't know if it really strained my relationship with God, but it definitely didn't benefit it when in those times where I'd feel like I was there because I had to be there, not because I wanted to be there.
I definitely felt obligated to play multiple times. A lot of the times happen more because of personal issues, like things happen with other people on the worship team, or things happen with people outside of the church that makes it hard to play sometimes, and you don't want to go, but you still go because you signed up for it, so you have to be responsible and do your job. But it definitely has been hard sometimes knowing that I don't want to go, but I do go. But I guess it's just playing out of love, really. Like I said with my previous answer, that I do it like as a way that I'm grateful for everything God has done for me. Like I don't think it's pulled me away from having a better relationship with God. It's just been a challenge.
Me personally, I don't feel like being on the worship team has ever strained my relationship with God. Now, have there been times that were tough? Of course, there's been times where I felt overstressed or had a big workload on me, where I did sort of feel like an obligation, where I might have just forgotten that the reason why I was there to play, and I forget it's out of my love and my wanting to grow in Christ. And it just feels like I'm here to play again, but I don't ever feel like that's strained my relationship. It just made things. I just felt like things have been hard at times, but then you pass through that temporary time and you remember, oh yeah, I was going through a little bit of a tough time, but now it's over. Time to remember the reason why I'm here. And, I thank God for all those tough times, because it then eventually does grow you. And then in the future, when other tough times happens, you look at it through a different lens. So have there been tough times where I might have forgotten my main reason for being there? Yeah, I would say yes. But I don't think it's ever made my relationship with God any weaker. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
I know a few of you guys have had some students in the past, so my next question is, what advice would you give somebody who wants to join a worship team or interested in learning an instrument?
So currently I'm teaching 2 to 3 students every week, like it's once a week. And something that I always tell them is that they need to practice. So I think As I would tell any new student or anyone that's learning any kind of instrument, that it's a huge responsibility and that they definitely have to plan out some time to practice, or it won't work. And I know because when I don't practice and I play, it's not it. But when I practice, everything goes great. And I think it's that effort, that extra effort that we put in that helps. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice, and also that they need to be prepared for the worst, because it's pretty difficult to be on the worship team, but it's also a beautiful thing. So I don't know, you get the best of both worlds when you're up there.
So I guess for students, be prepared to hear like the worst and the best, because when you're learning, it's not always easy. It can be exciting at first and you just want to keep playing and playing and practicing. And then there's probably might come a time where you just don't want to keep playing and you might want to quit and feel unmotivated. But I think that's the time where you need to push yourself more to definitely get better, and that it's not always going to be easy. And you definitely, I guess I will say, you need to grow kind of a thick skin, because some people will have opinions about you and say things about you that will hurt your feelings. But I think don't take it to heart, because half those people don't even play instruments either. And, they're just opinions. And if you want to join, know what you're joining for, and don't let anybody distract you or steer you away from what you want to do.
So to anybody wanting to learn an instrument or joining a worship team at their own church, my biggest piece of advice to you would be to look at it through a lens of being ready to grow and to be positive about it. It's never going to be easy. You're going to get criticism, and it might be criticism from others, or it could be criticism on your playing. And some of that stuff, people will always say things, it might not always be good. And, it might not be something to benefit you, and that's something you can ignore. But there's going to be a lot of criticism that isn't meant to be harsh, and it comes from a point of view of the person who said it. They want you to grow, and that could be your worship leader. That could be your teacher trying to teach you something, and not everything's going to be easy. And that's the whole point. And it's something you gotta embrace and enjoy, because you have to embrace the mistakes you make in order to grow. You need to be ready to make mistakes. It's not about all being perfect. So to students joining any sort of class or the worship team, remember to be prepared to learn, be prepared to grow, but most importantly, be prepared to actually enjoy it, and not to give up, and not to look at it negatively when things get tough, because that's something that you actually need to enjoy and think, after this is all done and with time, this is going to become easier. So embrace it, love it, don't grow weary.
Well, guys, that was all the questions I've had. So thanks, and we'll be back next time with the next installment. See you guys next time.